We are the church. Beyond Sunday. Beyond Sunday. Yes, we are. We love Beyond Sunday.
Hello, welcome back to Wheeler Beyond Sunday. Today we're here to discuss this week's sermon, and it was called Knock Down a Rung or Two. I really like that uh, title. This week's sermon was focused on the ways that we often strive to feel important. Our sermon scripture told us the story of James and John asking Jesus if they could have the places of honor next to him in his kingdom. To some of us, this may seem like an outrageous or very presumptuous thing for them to request of Jesus. But Ginger challenges us to think about the ways that we strive to feel and look important or be at the top of our hierarchy in society today. So we're really excited to talk to you about that today. My name's Derek Harding. I'll be hosting that with you. I'm here today with Jill Taylor and Sarah Arnold and Aubrey Younger. And we're really excited to talk through this with you. So she opened this sermon by discussing the hierarchy we often see among animals, both wild and domestic. And I have one right here, wild and domestic at the same time. So let's start off with a fun question. I think all of us have pets. We were talking about that before we started recording here. And if so, do you find that they have sort of a pecking order among them? And do you have a particular pet who tends to be the bossy one?
Yeah, I do. I have a 1.5-year-old black lab named Happy, and we call this Happy's house because Happy rules this house, and Happy likes to do what he wants to do. He's not great on a leash. He likes to be wild and free in the backyard, and he really loves the snow today. So, if I try to bring him back in, he's not going to want to come in. He's going to want to be in that snow.
I have two dogs. I have a sheepadoodle and then I have an English bulldog. And the English bulldog's a rescue. And she lived in a crate in the corner of our living room forever. And then when she started trying to come out, the sheepadoodle Moose, he like pecks at her, literally like you were just saying, pecking order. That's exactly what it looks like. Like he pecks at her head. So we have to keep him kind of off. But when she gets frustrated enough, she retaliates. And then we just kind of have a little skirmish in our living room. It was all good when she was afraid to come out, but then it wasn't.
Yeah, we've got a dog and a new cat, Sasha. So we're coming up on. Oh Lord, we might have had her. I think we've had her over a year now. But Bally, she's our old girl. She's turning white in the face. She's probably 10 years old. From a size perspective, when they're playing, Bally doesn't know how big she is compared to that cat, and the cat gets over it quick. And just like one little swipe, Bally is off in a corner cowering, and she'll like look over her shoulder, all like defeated and beat, waiting for you to like tell her it's okay and you can come back, and then back to good then.
No, that's awesome. We have two cats, Emery and Lily. The dynamic between them are very interesting. So Lily was the older one, and then when we brought in Emery, of course Emery was a little tiny kitten at the time, and Lily wanted to play with him, and so started as cat's play and jumping on him and stuff and teaching him that, and he didn't like it too much. Well, he's much bigger than Lily is now, and so he does it to Lily, and she doesn't like it a lot, but they chase each other around a lot. But interesting dynamics I see. So Lily, oftentimes she's not a lap cat, but Emery is a cat, and he sleeps with me at night, just like very bonded to me. And but Lily is oftentimes in our bed before we go to bed at night, and she's got her spot, and we'll go in there and get ready for bed, and she won't move. And then, but Emery is still submissive to her, so he sits outside the room watching her, just laid down in a very submissive stance. So we always call him acting like the redhead stepchild. feeling left out. But so it's a very interesting dynamic. That's awesome. Uh, that starts us off light, but it actually points to something serious in us. Ginger once went on to make the point that humans are part of the animal kingdom too, and we have the same natural competitiveness that we often see in animals. She listed a few ways that our innate desire to be the best often shows itself in childhood, such as wanting to be the teacher's pet or star athlete. Were there any particular aspects of your life as a child where you were very ambitious or competitive?
Yes, I
Go ahead, Sarah.
oh, sorry. I did not resonate with the sporty one. I was like, no. But when she said teacher's pet, I was like, yes, definitely. We actually had this thing. This is kind of a wild thing to be competitive at, but my third grade teacher used to uh, put different people in charge of the class during her smoke break. And so she would be like, okay, she would pick whoever was being the quietest or would like answer in class to be the one that was in charge when she would go outside to smoke. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be the best I could be because I want to be in charge of the class. And I would love getting picked for that. So that's a really strange thing to want to be picked for, but maybe it taught me leadership skills. I don't know.
I think we can make you a car sticker for your back windshield. Something about I was picked while the teacher went to smoke.
Yeah, that made me the teacher I am today.
I feel like I was like the opposite of competitive, like everybody around me was, but I was an only child, or am an only child. So I just didn't have much, competition around me. Other than I did do dance class, so I always wanted to be the one that, never had to look at someone else's feet to see what they were doing in the recital. Like I wanted to be the one everybody kind of looked at to see what I was doing. But other than that, like I said, I never played sports or anything like that, other than church league softball, if that counts. And I think we
That
went.
gets pretty competitive.
You would have thought we had just, won the Super Bowl. So, but I think being an only child kind of kept me from having to be as competitive, probably.
I tried hard in sports. I because my birthday's at the end of July. Like I was the youngest of my grade, um, and I was also smaller then. So I was always trying to play ball as good as everybody else was. So I guess I had the ambition and not the competitiveness. Just trying to fit in. Never could quite hit the ball as good. Never was quite as fast, but I was always there.
Mhm.
That's all I can remember from a competitive standpoint as a kid.
That's really interesting. I was reflecting on this a little bit today as I was preparing, and um, I don't know about myself. I've never considered myself competitive, but I think maybe I was. I was very competitive, but I was afraid to compete against people, so I would often back down. Which is not what everyone who's competitive does. But if I did not feel like I could be the best, I did not want to participate. And I don't know, that's a different side of the coin. But I think that counts too.
Sure.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
lot of students, kids that don't try because they know that they might not be the best at it. So they're just like, no, I'm just not going to do that. I don't want to play that one,
yeah,
so.
yeah. So maybe the same instinct does not disappear when we grow up. It just gets dressed up differently. Now, what does that look like for you as an adult? Do you find yourself being competitive at your job or, other recreational activities you might do?
Yes. um, so I was looking at like some hobbies this year. I was like, I need to get some good hobbies. And when it got pretty outside, my friend from work, Courtney, and we decided we were gonna start pickleball because she has a pickleball court in her neighborhood. And like we don't know the rules that well. We try to get ChatGPT to like explain it in a summary for us because there was just too much. And we had it in our minds that we were going to get so good that we were going to enter the Fun Fest tournament. But we didn't decide that we wanted to play pickleball until like June. But the tournament is in July. And we were like, this is not enough practice. Like every day we go out there, we'd be so competitive. And like one time I hit the ball so hard it split the pickleball in half. And I was just like, gosh, I didn't know I had this in me. But I wanted to be in the tournament so bad. We did not make it in the tournament, but this year we are. So the competitive spirit is in me. And I didn't know I had it, but I do.
You're making up for all those years of not.
Yes,
flexing
it's
it.
like I never really played a sport. Like I've got to do one now as an adult, and I want to be really good at it.
Now,
Obliterating pickleballs.
yeah, Fun Fest. So the medallion. I said I was
Oh yes, yeah.
thinking, okay, maybe I am quite competitive because, yeah, like I try to lead people astray, like on, the social medias when they're like giving clues out. I'm like, oh, let's all go here. Yeah, did I mention I won it this year? Finally.
After how many years have we tried?
20. I figured it up. It was 20 years. But anyway, yeah, every once in a while we'll be sitting in the living room and it sits in there, and every once in a while I'll be like, did I mention like I won the medallion? Did anybody know that? And I'll like point up there like, yes, we know. And also another time that I realized I was really competitive is we used to, back when we had a middle school at Mary Hughes, and during homecoming week, we would do homecoming doors. We would have a competition to see who could come up with like the best homecoming door, like for the basketball thing. And I had to win that like every year. And I still have the trophy from the last year the middle school was there. That's the only time though that I just can remember getting almost like crazy about it. Like we've got to win. Like make sure you're doing that well. Tell my little second graders not to mess up when they're cutting things out.
I don't think I've ever been anything like that. I don't know. Like for the kids, maybe.
Mhm.
Like, oh, we're gonna be better than all the other kids, whether we're decorating something. Okay, the one time I can remember like getting into it and celebrating like victory and rubbing it in everybody's face was the egg drop at school.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I won that thing every year. But yeah, that's about the only time I can like remember being competitive.
Aubrey, what's the secret to the good, like making it stay together?
Pantyhose. You suspend that thing in the air inside a box, and it has all the shock absorption, all the free movement in there.
I didn't think of this. Yeah, that's a great idea.
My mom is the mastermind behind that. That was not an original idea.
That's awesome. Ginger noted that even if we're not actively fighting for a position in some hierarchy within our daily lives, we can still often be territorial of people, teams, and celebrities that we live vicariously through. For me, for a lot of my life, as many of you know, I grew up a huge Tennessee Vols fan and Braves fan. Um, I have noticed, though, in myself, after going through what we call the decade of dysfunction in the 2010s, a lot of that edge of a fan that I used to have is gone, and I've mellowed out a lot in the last 5 years. But is this a case potentially for you that you've lived vicariously through other people or teams or celebrities and feel competitive about them or wanting to take their side and feel competitive about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm a Bengals fan, and they don't usually do too well. So I'm kind of like, used to losing, calls the lovable losers. But anyway, it did say, I think maybe too, that like, can we be territorial people? And I have found like my best friends since fourth grade the first year that I found out, like, she was going to the beach with like a different friend. And this has been, I'm going to just admit, I mean, like, we were in our like late 30s. And she was like, yeah, I'm going to go to the beach. And I'm like, oh, really? Who's going? You know? And she's like, are you laughing at me?
late 30s.
I'm 46 now. That's been a while ago. Okay. Anyway, so that's how bad it is. Yes. And I still do it every year when she says she's going with these people to the beach. I'm like, what are you going with those people for? Like, I'm your best friend. Like, to them kind of thing, you know? So I get very territorial over, I think, some of my friends. Like, I mean, it's not like I don't want them to have other friends, but I mean, it's the beach.
I was just definitely thinking, like, we've been talking about high school. We've been talking about, decorating doors and then there's some friend jealousy, and it's it's in your 30s. Come on.
I get that too. I didn't think about it till she said it, but yeah, I'm like, I want my friends to hang out with me. What are they doing? Going to the beach with somebody else. There's like these memes on the internet that there's like one of your friends is getting married and they have to sit at the table with like their new husband, and you're like, why is she sitting at the girls' table with all of us?
See, Aubrey, I'm not the only crazy one.
Yeah, it must be a girl thing. I don't know.
It's just funny. Like, I have felt that, but not recently.
Well, it's not your late 30s. I'm not even there yet, so it doesn't count.
Yeah.
Oh, so ambition and the drive to be the best are so ingrained in our society, yet it often feels strange to consider that the disciples had the same struggle with wanting to be the best. Let's take a second and listen to Ginger's explanation of this week's sermon scripture.
You may recall that James and John were among the first, along with Peter and Andrew, to be called by Jesus to be his disciples. And as we pointed out a few weeks ago, they dropped everything, not only their nets, but they also left father Zebedee to follow Jesus. So they had really sacrificed a lot to follow him. All along, Jesus has been showing his disciples, mostly by example in the Gospel of Mark, what it meant to be his followers. And now he is preparing them for his death and his departure. Sandwiched between last week's text of the rich man and today's text, Jesus is telling them about what will happen when they enter Jerusalem. Listen, he said, we're going up to Jerusalem where the Son of Man will be betrayed to the leading priests and the teachers of religious law. They will sentence him to die and hand him over to the Romans. They will mock him, spit on him, flog him with a whip, and kill him. But after 3 days, he will rise again. He has just told them that. And then here come James and John, as if they had hardly even heard a word he said, except for he will rise again. And they make a request to sit in positions of honor on his right and his left. It was obvious that they had not understood what they had heard. Were they thinking that his comment about rising again meant that he would end up being victorious and not be killed at all? And if victorious, he would finally establish rule in which he would be the new king over Israel and they would be free from Roman oppression? Most likely, yes. And if so, then he would need to fill several positions. As king, he would have to have several people that would be trustworthy and worthy of doing the work that would be required. William Crowder Jr. writes in Feasting on the Gospels, James and John have misunderstood the purpose of Jesus' life and ministry. Their request is for a political or governmental appointment in a presidential administration. The brothers' request of Jesus to sit at his right hand and his left is a political move, a request for positions of power. Sadly, they missed the mission that Jesus was sent to fulfill. Mark paints a picture of James and John being so caught up in popularity and power that they cannot see reality. James and John are observing the popularity of Jesus and not the harsh political reality that Jesus is about to be handed over to those who hate his life and want to see it brought to a humiliating end. James and John have no earthly idea what they are asking.
So, when Ginger explained the disciples' likely misunderstanding of what Jesus was telling them about his death and resurrection, did that change your perspective on this story at all? For me, I think a lot of this has to do with like the competitiveness of the disciples. So, throughout the story, we hear that the disciples were always debating who was the best among them, who was the most loyal to Jesus, who was the most faithful follower, who was the best. And so here's this story of two of the disciples saying, "Hey, we're the best and we deserve to be elevated above everyone else. Can we be sitting at your left and right?" And of course, they're thinking of this as some more political position that Jesus is going into Jerusalem to conquer. Um, is that kind of the same takeaway that you all felt?
Yes, I think so.
I think it was
Almost.
like an exchange of like they are thinking about the power, and Jesus's story is coming from a place of humbling himself. So it was kind of like getting it all wrong.
Makes you wonder if they were making that decision or going down that thought process for the right reasons. And, Jesus is doing it again for that humbling, specific reason. And then to see like your followers who should have, like they know better than most what you're about, what you're doing. Like they completely missed the mark. Nowhere close.
For sure. Have you ever had a situation where you were desperately trying to help someone understand a topic, but they just kept missing the big picture? I think this is kind of, what she was talking about a lot of time, that Jesus was trying to explain this is not about political power. This is not about me coming in and overpowering the country and everything, but this, Jesus is trying to get them to understand the humility and what it means to really follow Jesus and stuff like that. So, have you ever had a situation where you kept on trying to explain to someone or help someone understand something they just weren't getting it?
I wish we had teachers we could ask and give like a for instance if we've had a hard time explaining something to a kid.
Huh.
Jill, I saw you laughing in the corner, and I was like, I know exactly what she's going to say.
I mean, we do that all the time. Like you'll say something, even like with directions.
Mm-hmm.
Say the directions, and you'll be like, I feel like I just told them exactly what to do. I mean, everything but do it for them,
Yeah.
And then as
We're
soon
both math teachers.
you're gonna be like,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, where have you been for the last 5 minutes? So it's very frustrating, and that's not even something serious like this topic. I can't imagine what that would be like. So
5 plus 2. They're like 52. You're like, no. Let's count on. Not 52.
Have you all seen those reels where like the mom she's got the oven mitts on and she's got like this plate, she's saying the plate's hot and she's like got her daughter or something and the daughter's just like reaching for it without gloves and she's like, no, the plate is hot, and the daughter just is not like
doesn't get it.
doesn't get it, so she like starts to reach for it again. The mom is just about losing her mind. She can't let go of this thing. Yeah.
I haven't seen that one, but that seems accurate.
Yeah.
Like just the frustration builds and builds and builds to like this breaking point, and yeah.
So, how does it feel to imagine Jesus going through the same feelings of frustration as the disciples repeatedly misunderstood what he was telling them about his coming death?
Well, like I said, it's frustrating as it is, for the small things and that teachers go through from day to day. I can't imagine with it being something that major and that important. I mean, world changing.
Yeah.
You just don't get it. That would,
Life on the line, literally.
yes, it would just have to be beyond frustrating.
Yeah. I was looking up here and I have a visual, but I don't know if it's a good visual. So we'll see. Hold on, let me show you this. This is maybe the most ridiculous thing I've ever done as a mom. But Jill, this came from youth group with the trophy because
No.
we were so competitive about the trophy. Okay, let me grab it. I made a ridiculous trophy for my children, my two sons, and it also works for my two nephews as well. But I quit using this trophy because it completely missed the mark. Okay, so like in this Bible story, we're missing the mark about like Jesus's purpose, and this trophy is called the Gentleman's Award. It was started because I noticed that like in restaurants or when we would go somewhere out in public, like we were just getting feral. And I was like, dudes, we need to have manners. So the trophy has 4 components to win. There's manners. This is supposed to be kindness, but I didn't have enough room to write it. Being kind, integrity, and honor. So you have to have those 4 things to win the Gentleman's Award. And instead of learning these things, it caused fist fights. So I just think like the disciples, like, here's my power, like I want all this power. And it completely missed the mark. But I had good intentions with this thing. And I had to give it up. Like it just sits on a shelf now. Nobody's able to win until we like learn that the real meaning behind this trophy.
Yeah, it'll come in use later.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So until then, the Gentleman's Award is on a shelf. And but it just kind of made me think about the disciples fighting for their power.
It's so funny. We're talking about this and you just kind of look up.
And I was like, there's that award that I had to put on the shelf.
So that's a good example. It is. Hopefully they won't use it as a weapon one day instead. But for now, it sounds like it's a really good example. And it's definitely a lot more classy than the Super Bowl trophy.
I loved the Super Bowl trophy. That was so fun.
Absolutely.
So Jesus explained to the disciples that following him would include suffering for him. Drinking from the bitter cup of suffering Jesus was about to drink, and being baptized with the baptism of suffering Jesus was going to be baptized with. They naively responded that they were ready to experience that suffering for Christ, and he warned them of the persecution they would face for his sake. The disciples were oblivious to what the cup and baptism of suffering meant, but so hungry for the seat of honor at Jesus' side. Ginger asked the question, what are we willing to endure for Jesus? In your faith, have you ever experienced persecution or hatred from others because of your faith?
I can't think of any time that I've ever experienced any kind of persecution or hatred. I mean, I feel like we live in a pretty safe place as far as Christianity goes. I mean, we're surrounded, live in the Bible Belt. We live around a lot of other somewhat like-minded people when it comes to Christianity. I mean, I feel like that happens more in places where there's a little more diversity, possibly. Have you all ever had that happen? Like around, I mean, I guess it could be anywhere, but
I agree with you, Jill. I think we take for granted the place we live, but let me challenge you a moment and reword this a certain way. Instead of thinking of this as persecution or hatred from others for your faith, have you ever felt someone who has different values from you or a different worldview tempt you and try to get you to do things that you know are against your value system? Because that's another way of persecution in a certain sense.
like a peer pressure type situation.
Yeah.
I think anybody who's been through high school has that has definitely had that happen before. I can't think of an example at this time that kind of goes along with that, but
Yeah, when you phrased it the first way, I was like, Jill, like, no, I really haven't experienced that. When you rephrase it that way, I can't think of a specific time, but yeah, I know it's happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I can think of is just I feel like obviously, we've got different like the Methodist, the Baptist, the Catholic, you've got all these different things, and they do have different views on different things as well. And just being around people that maybe are a different denomination don't always have, I feel like, the same views as I do. Um, and it's sometimes it's a little bit hard to stick with what is right when you're hearing things coming from other people. And um, that's really probably the only thing I can think of. Some of the major um, beliefs that I have,
Yeah.
like baptism, for instance. I have friends that'll be like, "Well, you're not really baptized because you were baptized as a baby," and but that's just not the way they feel baptism works. So there was times when I was little that I was like, "Oh gosh, Mom, am I baptized? Like, am I okay? Have I been baptized?" So
Yeah.
I guess that kind of thing, maybe.
Yeah. Aubrey, I was wondering, you and I are more from a business background, and we kind of get exposed to a different kind of world than our two teachers in here do. But I sometimes personally feel that in the business world, we are tempted to do things um, in a cutthroat world where it's all about generating value and competitiveness and stuff like that. Sometimes, you know, we can be tempted to go against maybe our innate value system to cut corners or do whatever it takes to for that competitiveness. Have you ever felt kind of that?
Not necessarily from the competitiveness piece, pressured to make decisions based on somebody else's moral values instead of mine. I run a private practice physician group, locally, and while I am the boss or whatever you want to call it, like it's still the five docs own it. Um, and at the end of the day, regardless of years of experience or something like that, I feel like I'm gonna get myself in trouble. But if I'm hired for one thing based on my experience, like let me do that thing rather than trying to, I don't know, the different view. There's definitely biases. I'm definitely pressured to do things a certain way that is not on my time frame, that is not again how I do it, and I'm very much that grace giving. I will let somebody fool me once, twice, three times, four times, depending on what it is, before I like have the hard like, look, you got to go. I mean, just today we had to let somebody go because within your 90 days, and you can't just be calling in left and right. Like that's you're showing me a pattern now. Whether or not there is going to be a pattern, or you promised me, um, it's not a pattern. This isn't going to happen again. I've got to make the best decision to get somebody in here that the team's going to be able to rely on. And right now, that's not it. No matter how much I wanted to, give that second chance.
Mhm. I think that's a good example because we're taught to turn the other cheek or give a second chance, in our faith. And I think that's a really good example.
For sure. The other disciples were frustrated with James and John for essentially asking Jesus to grant them a rank above their fellow disciples, which is a very human response and one that many of us might feel as well in that situation. Here's what Jesus had to say about that.
As the other disciples overheard the conversation and became angry, Jesus took the opportunity to remind them yet again what following him meant. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man cannot be served, but not to serve, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many.
Ginger then described the Passover feast where Jesus washed his disciples' feet as an example of servant leadership. Obviously, our culture no longer utilizes foot washing in the same way that Jesus' culture did. So it can be difficult to think about how it would look to take on the same posture of submission that Jesus used in this scene. What are some ways that we can be servant leaders in our day and age?
I mean, at the end of the day, set the example. If you want somebody to do good, show them that you do it also. That's what you expect. That's the expectation.
Yeah, I was thinking when she was preaching about this, I was thinking he was, as teachers, we're taught to model things for our students before they do them. This is what we expect, and we'll model it. And I was thinking when she was talking about this, I realized, gosh, Jesus was like, he kind of created modeling. Like he's the one that kind of started all that. I mean, he modeled things for us to follow after. As far as being servant, as far as being a servant leader, I don't know if this answers that or not, but just participating in different ways to serve others, such as camp in the community, or the Bible schools, or going and helping like feed the homeless. Just any way that you can kind of lower yourself to that servant status.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way that the things I thought of.
Sure.
Is
For me, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
you go ahead, Derek. Okay.
For me, this was a really impactful sermon. Servant leadership is something I've been called to, and I've been feeling this like pull for the last several weeks now. I'm been a manager now for a couple years, and I'm trying to settle into my management style, my leadership style, and I am surrounded by more of a driver mentality at work. Um, Almost to the point at times it can be a toxic level of driver mentality that I see in people. And it's very much given me a heart of wanting to care for my people, wanting to be a servant leader. And I've been thinking for weeks about how can I do that? And, a lot of that is, being able to focus my people on their job, taking away things that are distractors for them, um, taking on some of the political aspects of the job and trying to protect them from seeing some aspects of it and eating that myself, and just keeping them focused and blocking down barriers. And I think that's what it means to be a really good servant leader, and enabling others and elevating them above yourself. And today was it's quite fascinating. I went to a pier today, and as I'm working through this myself and trying to figure out, wanting validation. Am I doing the right things? Am I growing as a leader the way I should be? I told him, I was like, I feel the desire to dedicate the rest of my life, the rest of my career as a servant leader, and growing to enable people, and becoming the best servant leader I could be. And his response to me shocked me. He told me, he said, I have no servant leadership inside of me. I have no desire for kindness. I don't want to be a servant leader. I don't want to grow in that space, and I don't want servant leaders under me. He said, I am solely focused on value, execution, and delivery. And if it's not that, I don't have time for it. And it shocked me to the point where I'm still, I think I'm working through that myself, but I 100% know that's not what I want to be. That is not what I want to, the culture I want to ingrain in the people around me. And I'm still reeling from that, and I'm trying to figure out what that means, but it's so timely in this specific sermon, talking about values, talk about the persecution for those values, or the temptation to do things a different way, because this individual obviously has a very different value system than me. And so I'm still trying to work through that, and hopefully God will help me find a good path, because I definitely feel called to a different path than that.
It definitely makes you wonder what what his values are. Were they passed down to him from somebody who had that same mentality? Um, and that's where he got it from. I mean, I can't think if it's anything but that. Um, Makes you pause hearing that out loud. That's stuff people think inside their minds and like don't tell anybody.
Very bold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm kind of like with Aubrey, he's obviously seen that somewhere and learned that. He's been modeled that to him, and that's how he uses his leadership style. My comment, Derek, was going to be totally opposite. So, um, I have worked for a magnificent principal for 10 years, and she's getting ready to retire. And every day that I think about her leaving, I get so upset because our school has just like been this well-oiled machine because of her. She throws like her heart and soul into being the best leader that she can be. And she has not been one that lets like power get to her head, or now she is competitive, she's self-competitive, she wants to be better than she was last year, and she like instills that in us. There have been times that she just invests in us. Like when my grandmother, I was at work and my grandmother was on her deathbed at Holston Valley, and my boss said, hop in the car, we're going. And she got somebody to cover my class and drove me to the hospital to say goodbye. She's the first one to bring a meal when somebody's lost somebody. And she's the first one to take care of a child that's gone through the most unimaginable trauma. And I can't imagine not wanting to be a servant leader like her. And I'm so thankful that I've had that to look up to. And it's almost like a legacy, because everybody from Rock Springs has benefited from her being a servant leader. And it really does, it trickles down like that. So, you never know what the impact is going to be.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think you noticing, and I'm sure you're not the only one who's noticed. I think y'all will be fine. She's instilled quite a bit and made that impact.
Oh yeah, definitely. She was at Mary Hughes at one point too. And yeah, I could ditto all of those things. And we also we had a principal after her as well that was very much a servant leader. But I have had some that were not. I've had some that were very difficult to work for. And
What were their names?
I a bit to say one of them, but I won't. I'm going to be a good Christian. Anyway, so yeah, but sometimes I think the Lord puts people like those people that shall go unnamed in our path, so that we can, really appreciate it when we have someone like you have now. And I love who we have as well. But our Randy Gentry retired last year, and we were just the same way. We were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Like, he shapes this entire place. And servant leaders like that have a way of they don't have to try to lift themselves up it just happens because everyone sees through their actions who they are. And I try to do that same thing, and I know Sarah does, and I'm sure you all do as well. But in my classroom, I try to be, I guess, a servant leader in my classroom as well, just to be a role model for kids. Just those things that are on your little trophy, Sarah. So yeah, like honor and loyalty and all of
There it happened again.
anyway, so yeah, it does. It makes a huge difference. And that's a really tough place to be in a position when, you don't work for a servant leader or someone who seems to care.
Yeah. Those are awesome examples for us to all learn from, for sure. In a similar vein, what does it look like to deny yourself? And how can we practice that in our daily lives?
It is so easy, and like you said, like human nature, to be so competitive and want power and success. And so it's looking like humbling yourself and pushing that aside.
Yeah, I agree, for sure. As we close, what part of this sermon is the big takeaway that you take away from this, and how are you planning to apply that to your life?
Jesus didn't exactly flip the tables when he figured out that when they weren't getting, what he was saying. So I guess patience. Take the time to show them what you mean.
I think when she posed the question, what are you willing to endure for Jesus? I had never really thought about that exact question, but it kind of made me step back and really kind of ponder that, think about it.
For sure. Very good. Would anybody like to pray for us tonight before we close out?
Everyone's looking around in all the squares.
That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah. All right. Aubrey's doing not at nose game. I'll pray. Okay, everybody. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the servant leadership that you show all of us and the example that you leave to each of us. God, we thank you for being able to gather together, even if it's not in person, to talk about you and learn more about your example. We know that sometimes it's so hard to be the servants that you call us to be, but we know with your spirit inside of us that we can do what you've called us to do. God, we thank you for all of the people here and all of the people who are listening, and just continue to be with us. And we love you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Beyond Sunday. Beyond Sunday. Beyond Sunday.